there, world? It's me again, and I've got an idea. I've had it for a long while, but now I'm wanting to put it out here. I want to put it out here and see if somebody picks it up. We are all tired. We're tired of hearing about officers who are shooting and tasing and macing people without justification. We are tired of officers having their guns taken away from them and them being shot. We are so tired of having the excuse that the officer's personal body cam was shut off. Just to find out years later it wasn't. We are tired of it all. So I've got a solution. My solution is that a gun holster should have a charger like this. Just a little one like this. You see that little charger? For a reason. It should have a mechanism put into that gun holster that has a chip on it. And the same thing with the taser holster and the holster for the mace. It should have a chip inside of that holster that coincides with a chip on that gun or on that taser or on the mace. So that the instant that gun is pulled out of the officer's holster, it automatically, that second, sends a signal to turn on the camera on the officer and to send out a call to dispatch, officer in need of help, with his GPS location. That way, no matter if it's the officer pulling his gun to shoot somebody, it is automatically recorded and can be used as evidence. That way, whether or not it is somebody who is grabbing the officer's gun to shoot him, take a look at where I am. I'm the perpetrator that just took that officer's gun. And you are the officer's body cam. Who do you see pulling the gun on you? The perpetrator is much more quickly and much more easily caught. And if the wound on the officer is not fatal, the help he needs comes much quicker. Whether or not the person who shot him takes his camera, breaks his mic, whatever it is, or the officer is too slow on pulling the mic to call for help. No matter what, the instant that gun is taken out of his holster, his camera comes on. The instant that gun is more than what it would take, I'd say between 3 and, say, 6 feet away from the officer. The instant that gun goes that far away from the officer, whether it's in the holster or not, that camera instantly goes on. That way, whether the perpetrator grabs the officer's camera off of him or his mic off of him, same thing goes with the mic. That mic is grabbed off of him and thrown, that chip instantly goes off, sending his GPS. So it doesn't matter what the perpetrator does to try and stop that officer for calling for help. It will instantly call for the help he needs. instantly. The instant the gun is pulled, the instant the gun is removed from him and taken further than what needs to be for an officer to hold a gun, to aim it, to be able to shoot at somebody, that signal is sent out. And the instant that gun is removed from the holster, it is sent out. Now, if the officer can take his gun off of his hip and hold it 4 feet out in front of him, or 6 feet out in front of him, my God, put him in the Heroes World Book of Records, because that's Stretch Armstrong. That gun needs to be on his hip at all times when he's on duty. If it is not on his hip or close enough to him that he can have his hand on it, that camera needs to come on. And the reason why I say 6 feet is, come on. You know darn well that when he goes to the bathroom and his pants go down by his ankle, that might be between 5 and 6 feet away from the camera. We don't want the camera popping on every time he's got to take a piss. I'm sorry. But we do want that camera popping on if that camera is too far away from that gun to be registered as a possibility that he has pulled down his pants to go to the bathroom. And maybe with today's technology, you can make it, instead of registering just 6 feet away from him, have it registered in the vertical mode. If it's more than the distance of what it takes for an officer to pull his pants down to be able to take a piss or go poop, if it's more than that from down below, away from his body, then that means somebody's gotten a hold of the gun and has walked away from his feet. And that camera should be on. If that gun is more than what it takes for an officer to hold the gun and shoot, I mean, you could have it. We've got things so that they can be calibrated in 100 different ways. You can have it so that each individual officer can stand with a gun like this with their body cam on, and at that moment push a button and it registers the distance between that gun and the officer's camera. That way, in the horizontal move, if that gun's any further than what it takes an officer to do this, that camera is automatically turned on. You can have him stand there and pull his pants down to his knees and push a button on his camera that will register where his holster is compared to that camera, and that will register the vertical signature on how far away that gun can get away from that camera. Making sure that if that gun ever gets any further away from him than that, within a margin of error, if his gun ever gets further away from him than that distance, instantly the camera is turned on and the officer's GPS location is broadcast. Even if you don't get the perpetrator on camera, you're at least getting somebody there to give that officer aid if he is incapacitated but still alive. You could save a life. And if we've got a bad cop out there shooting people unjustifiably, you can save a citizen's life too. Or at least give his family justice. And that's all we want as citizens. We want justice for officers who are wrongly gunned down by crooks. And we want citizens to have justice when they're wrongly gunned down by an officer. Why is that wrong to ask for? That should not be controversial. That should be common sense in the sense of protecting humanity. That does not make an officer weak or ineffective. It makes the officer accountable for their own actions. Just the same as not having a camera and an officer shooting somebody does not make the person he shot instantly guilty of what he was shot for. Nor does it make the officer instantly innocent for the reason he shot the unarmed person. But that camera will make sure that the facts come out and that justice is done. And if an officer tries to hide that video, then you know damn well that officer did something wrong. Now, the other thing that I think would be a good idea is if the dispatch, for any reason whatsoever, has the ability to turn on the officer's cam. Why is that? Because if at any point in time the dispatch cannot get a hold of an officer, they can turn on his cam and be able to get his GPS location, just in case at some point in time, God forbid, some officer has a heart attack or some medical condition that ends up making it so he needs aid and was not able to get it. Or somebody, God forbid, shoots him before he even has a chance to grab his gun. You see, it protects him and it gives him what he needs to save his life. My suggestion on that one with the dispatch being able to send out, if that officer's got his camera off any more than 15 minutes, a beeper should be going off in the dispatch to let the dispatch know the officer's camera is off and to then get a hold of the officer to find out why. And if the officer does not respond, they can then do it themselves by turning on the camera. And if the officer is not moving, they can then send out a help to that officer because they can do a beeper that will beep to send his GPS location. Making sure that officer gets the aid he needs. when he needs it. Protection all the way around. Life-saving for everybody. For the citizen and for the officer. And let's see how many lives we can save with something like that. Oh, the last idea on that is if that gun does get a certain distance away from the officer, it's rendered unusable. That there's something right behind the trigger that will push out and make it so that that gun is unusable. So the trigger is unable to be pulled. That way when somebody takes that gun, he's not able to shoot that officer. You don't need to have biomechanisms to make it so that an officer's gun is only able to be used by the officer who is registered to use it. You can do it in a million different ways. Biosensors can be flawed. But if the sensor you've got has to do with the physical location of the body of the officer and the physical location of that gun when it's pulled from the holster or away from the officer's body, that is a more accurate way to make sure that something is triggered in that gun to render that gun unusable. Nobody can pull that trigger until the officer resets that gun. And the officer has to call dispatch, or he has to do something to make sure that he can reset that gun himself without calling dispatch. Something that's going to be right on him, that no perpetrator is going to register. Whether it be he brings his gun back and touches it to the camera, and that automatically registers it as on the officer's body, and then the officer can pull it. No more than something like that. And then he's able to pull the trigger again. The mechanism shuts off. If he doesn't do that with his gun, he can't pull the trigger. Or something that he does with the gun itself. Something he touches, something he does. It makes the gun able to be shot again. It doesn't have to be a biometric type of a thing. It could be something totally other than biometrics. It could be just a little flip on and off of the safety. It could be an extra little safety button. Whatever it is you need to do. Something you got to push before you flip off the safety. Something as simple as that. That somebody who takes the officer's gun is not going to know about, because that gun will never be sold to the general public. Think about it. Think about how much life you can save that way. I know, I've got ideas. You might think I'm crazy, but think about it.